Hello and welcome to this timely question and answer session that will be running the rule over e-commerce and asking, can we sustain the home delivery boom? It's an important question, even an existential one, as the sector grapples with the driver crisis, Brexit, the pandemic, and even the very concept of just-in-time under question and whether it can survive. These are big questions, and to tackle them, we have brought Paul Sweeney from international logistics supplier Descartes and Kristina Flickinger from Halfords to welcome to both of those, and we'll be hearing from them more in a bit. If you have any questions that you'd like to send in to our speakers, please do via questions@businessleader.co.uk. This was a very, very well subscribed for event, so lots of people viewing today, so do send in your questions, or you've just got to hear my ones. And for those that you've been introduced to Business Leader for the first time, do look at our website at www.businessleader.co.uk, and you can see all of our events there too. So on to the debate. Welcome, Paul and Kristina. We'll get straight into it, and I want to kind of just get initial kind of set the scene and a sense of where we are with e-commerce sales. Obviously, there was the pandemic peak where we saw often probably 5 years of change kind of bottled into one, and some really, really strong sales for e-commerce brands. But how have they sustained, and what are they looking like year-on-year comparison? Paul, if we can start with you.
Sure. Yeah. Hi. Thanks, Ollie, and thanks for inviting us this morning. I think the answer to that is yes. So absolutely, I think that the growth that we've seen in e-commerce accelerated by the pandemic is pretty much here to stay. Based on the figures, you've got 36% growth in the UK online sales back in 2020. Based on some recent research across Europe, some of the major economies in Europe by Sapio, they're estimating around about 43% of purchasing is online at the moment. And I think it's about 50% of consumers are putting that down to the move they've made down to convenience. So, I don't see any particular reason for that to switch back and away from that online. I don't necessarily think that the high street is dead. I think it's a rebalancing, but that has been accelerated by the pandemic, and I think it's there, to stay. And sort of there's other factors coming out there as well. The number of people who are a percentage of I think it's 68% saying they've had some sort of issue with online deliveries in the last 3 months. Those factors need to be addressed by the industry. But I think the reality is that the switch to online that we saw accelerated by the pandemic is here to stay.
No, thanks, Paul. A really good intro summary there. Kristina, do you your view? Do you agree with Paul? And I think the direction of travel is pretty clear, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think anecdotally from the Halfords side of things, we've definitely seen the increase in the growth of online shopping through the pandemic, and then it's sustained as the pandemic has waned as well. And I think that moving forward, it's definitely here to stay. I think it's going to grow more rapidly, and people from the pandemic have come out the other side of it, understanding that that's an easier and more effective way to shop. And so now it's going to be up to the retailers to be able to provide that experience that those customers are expecting, and that goes all the way through to opening the product or getting the service at the doorstep as well.
No, thanks, Kristina, and you touch on that kind of service aspect, which we will kind of talk about in a bit more detail later. I just want to talk about some of the challenges now, and it's been well documented about HGV drivers. We're going to focus on why after this question, but I just want to kind of get a sense initially from Paul. Is this issue starting to sort of solve itself? Now, I know we've had the visas being rolled out to EU workers, but is this going to kind of now, kind of filter through quite quickly?
I think that will potentially help in there, Ollie. I think sort of in terms of the underlying factors that caused the driver shortage pre-pandemic, pre-Brexit. It already existed. The pandemic has definitely exposed it and caused it to become very acute. But it already existed, and those underlying factors still exist there. So I think the reality is that when you have a resource that is scarce, so drivers shortage, drivers a scarce resource, then you really have to think about how you're using that and that resource and utilizing it efficiently and not wasting it. So there's no real excuse in today's world as to why organizations are not able to get optimal use of drivers and so cut out inefficient journeys and cut out wasted times, waiting for dock doors to open and so on. And there's probably, based on what we are seeing, there's probably a factor of 25 to 35%, something in there, of increased utilization that organizations could get based on, based on the way that they're operating today in that area. So, and that would definitely have a longer term impact.
No, thanks, Paul. And Kristina, is there anything you wanted to add to what Paul said there on the HGV driver shortage?
Just to agree, I think that driver shortage is a long-term factor, an issue that even short-term, fixes like visas, etc., aren't really going to solve. And I think that as we move into a world that's looking more at sustainability and looking at there being less travel and autonomous vehicles and all those types of things, the driver shortage issue is only going to get worse. So smart organizations are going to figure out what they can do with their existing resource and how to leverage that the best of their ability. And the best way to do that is to really optimize those resources. And the way to do that is to leverage the technology behind those resources, not to replace the resources with technology, but actually to essentially power your resources and your people with the right technology, which not only will help them to do their job better, but then will also help to solve that factor of the fact that that there's less drivers out there, and therefore they've got to either take on more deliveries, they've got to visit more houses, they've got to do more with their trucks, their vans, or their stock, and all those things technology and that optimization can help with.
No, thanks, Kristina, and interesting what you mentioned there, Paul, because my next question was kind of what caused it, but I think this was something that was happening and bubbling away before the pandemic and Brexit and that kind of cocktail of maybe not great working conditions in all companies. Not saying all companies are like that, and other things have kind of exacerbated it. But do you now think that this has been the wake up call, just briefly, that companies? I know you kind of alluded to that earlier, that we in a modern democracy we shouldn't really be having these issues, should we?
I think the things you've mentioned there, conditions, wages, other pressures, pandemic, Brexit, all of those contributed to really making this issue very acute for the major economies in the world, and particularly for the UK on driver shortage. But I think we need to start looking at and understanding that supply chains and the global supply chains is really a connected network with events and goods flowing within it. And if you were to consider that like the M25 on a busy Friday, you get an accident at one point on the M25, immediate local impact, and then it ripples around the rest of the M25. You clear the accident and you still have impact, and you're wondering why it's still there. It's because that those supply chains are connected, and impact in one part of the world affects others. What you've got to try and do is get your ability to manage those impacts and manage them dynamically and efficiently and smartly. You need to increase that to give yourself an ability to address it long term, because there will be other impacts as we move forward here.
No, thanks, Paul. Kristina, just on that segment, anything you wanted to add before we moved on to our next question?
No, I think Paul covered that eloquently.
No, thanks, Paul, Kristina. So now we're going to talk more about how kind of e-commerce brands can kind of build a really, really good customer offering. As more people order online, there's more pressure on e-commerce brands. I just want to get a sense of are these rising customer expectations and this kind of I want it now, is that realistic and sustainable going forward, Paul?
Yeah, well, Kristina will have a good view on this one as well from her perspective in the retail space firsthand. But rising expectations, I think they're always felt to be unrealistic. When they're felt, until you accept that you need to meet those expectations, that's when you're beginning to see that they are realistic, because you're not in control of it. The consumer is in control. Pandemic has demonstrated the consumer, they have that control. They've got the power to change the market to become 43% online. We're going to see them now wielding that power more as they go forward. If you look at the environment, COP26 coming up here, impact of the environment and environmental decisions when people are purchasing and making decisions about how they want things delivered to them, that's only going to increase, and that's going to deliver increasing expectations. And so will, the Uberization of the economy. We've had the Amazon effect. We're now having Uberization, which is this: I want it now, and I want it from somebody I can trust. So yeah, I'm afraid those expectations, we're probably just seeing the tip of the iceberg on that.
No, thanks, Paul. Really interesting. Kristina, is there anything you wanted to add there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think unachievable expectation, or those rising expectations, that's something that I think we think too much about, actually, and we overthink about it, because fundamentally what a customer really wants, and what you and I want, is we want trust, right? We want to be able to trust the brand that they're going to deliver what they say they're going to deliver when they're telling you that they're going to deliver it. You want what it is that's going to be delivered, whether that's a service or a product, and you want that done consistently. So you want to have that experience with that brand, that you can trust that experience that you've had, if it's a good one, over and over and over again. And you also want to have some sense of unity, some sense of across the mix, that you're going to have that same experience with the brand at every touch point. And I don't think that's necessarily an expectation that retailers shouldn't meet. I think Halfords does a great job. Of course, I'm biased, but Halfords does a great job of understanding that the customer wants that and the customer expects that. And therefore, what they've done is that they have looked at their people, their workforce, they've looked at their technology, they've looked at various areas of the business and how they can solve that problem to ensure that the customer can trust them, to ensure that the customer feels like they're getting a consistent experience, whether they walk into a Halfords retail store, whether they get a Halfords email, whether they go into an auto center, or even better, if they get their tires fixed on their drive from a Halfords mobile expert. And they've been able to drive technology and also understand the power of the consumer and really listen to what it is that the consumer wants. The consumer wants to see a technician and where they are, right, on the road. So Halfords mobile experts, for instance, if you order your new tires, they will show up on your drive, and a technician will give you new tires, right, and balance those for you. But the nice thing about that is that the customer can actually see, where is my technician? When is he arriving? What's happening? So that they don't have to stay in their house all day. They get to choose their time slot. They get to choose to see where the technician is. They get all of that information. That's delivering that consistent experience, and technology has helped Halfords to do that, and helped to deliver. And I think that moving forward, it's not about unrealistic expectation. It's about truly, are we listening to the consumer? Are we actually giving them what they expect? And there are definitely, relatively seamless and effective ways to actually listen to the consumer.
Thanks, Chris. I'm just going to stick with you and present a scenario too. So I'm Mr. Consumer. I can go into Halfords, the physical store, and my experience there is quite easy to kind of measure, isn't it? I meet the staff; they're either good or they're bad. I order online, and I know Halfords is slightly kind of different process, but from an e-commerce route, I order online, and I don't speak to anyone, I don't kind of deal with it. The first person I see is a delivery driver who kind of chucks it over the wall, who maybe doesn't work for that company. And I just want to get a sense from you, is how do you get a really, really good from click to drop off experience as an e-commerce brand?
So again, I think it's about consistency. So we try to present a website, right, that is similar to the look and feel of our stores, right? So originally, you're giving them trust and comfort, that they're able to have that similar experience, same colors, same experience online. And then it's about, making sure that you're reiterating that trust. So you're allowing them to see what they've purchased, check it, right? Make sure that it's exactly what they offer. We have actual points throughout the customer journey where that happens online for us, so that customers can see, yes, this is actually what I wanted to order. And then we also have the ability to, do product matching and say, if you're looking for this vehicle, or if you have this bike, these are the recommended products, things that will help them in their buying journey. And then once you get to the checkout, right, and you get to the basket, then we start by communicating with the customer. So we communicate to their email, we tell them what they've purchased, we tell them when they can expect their delivery, we give them tracking information. So then we actually have more communication with them after the point of checkout that reminds them of the experience they had purchasing with us, and then moving all the way forward until there's home delivery, or they've actually, purchased a service that's going to happen on their doorstep. And then we don't stop there either. We have communication after that, which makes sure that we measure, how was their experience. We believe massively in customer feedback. We have a very high Trustpilot score, one of the highest in the industry at over 4.8. And so therefore we're measuring not only through to the end of the experience, but afterwards, how is the consumer fixing? And then we very much use that feedback to then feed that feedback loop back into the business.
No, thanks, Kristina. So, Paul, very good example there of why communication is important, and it just shows that e-commerce brands, they can't abdicate their responsibility to customer service, can they?
Absolutely, yeah. They definitely can't abdicate their responsibility. And I think sort of what Kristina brought up there. Sort of if you take trust and you take choice. Customers are looking for, trust the brand, and is that brand giving me the choices that meet my needs, both in terms of when do I want things delivered, how do I want things delivered. So can I trust that brand to actually give me the delivery service that is trustable as well? So can I see the person who's coming to make this delivery? Am I going to allow them into my property? Am I going to trust that person when they arrive? So seeing images of it, again, if you look at people trusting Uber, it's very much the same thing. There, you can see your driver, you can see the car, you can get the registration. All of that builds trust, and then having the choices of, is this going to be environmentally friendly? Is it not? Are they going to deliver at my time? Those are the things which increase that overall experience and that journey. Plus, sort of the communication that Kristina mentioned as well.
No, thanks, Paul. Really good point there. And both yourself and Kristina have mentioned the environment. So I just want to move on to our next question. Obviously, if e-commerce, the boom is sustained, and this is what this debate's all about, we're going to see more kind of vans, lorries driving around, and unless they're electric, which I guess they eventually will be, that puts pressure on the environment. So how can e-commerce brands kind of meet their environmental obligations? Because it's everywhere, isn't it? We need to kind of act on the environment, and any kind of tips and how you can do that, Kristina?
Yeah, so Halfords has already done that. So as you can probably guess, we leverage Descartes technology for route optimization. That's built into our own homegrown software called Availer, which we also offer to other retailers. But we use that internally for our vans, our service vans. We've got over 350 on the road now. And we've actually been able to reduce the miles per job by more than 4 per job a day. So you can imagine how that adds up from both a fuel consumption perspective, from the actual environmental impact on the road as well, from emissions. So each of those vans then is traveling less miles and being more productive when they take on jobs. And so that technology, the Descartes technology, has allowed us to therefore reduce both emissions, fuel consumption, all of that, and allowed us therefore to be environmentally friendly. And the more that we test the technology and the more options that we put out there, the better that gain will be to help us to be more sustainable as a business. And I think the goal for other businesses should be to try to leverage technology and to leverage their options, again, to do what Paul said at the very beginning, which is you can do more with less. And I think that's very much in line with sustainability and the goals that businesses should have to be more sustainable. Is there is actually creative ways to do more with less.
No, thanks, Kristina. Really good insight there. Paul, is there anything you wanted to add there?
So just on the point that Kristina is making there, sort of the more with less, but also as as consumers are making their choices, they will, 71% of the EU consumers consider the environment when they're making a purchasing choice online, including the delivery of that product. As they're looking at the delivery options they have, if you're able to present to them those options which are going to have a lower environmental impact than others. So I may like this to be delivered to me tomorrow, But if I'm considering the environment, well, actually Friday morning is the best option for the delivery organization because they're delivering to my neighbor or whatever it may be in there. And the incremental impact on the environment of me choosing Friday morning is the best environmental choice at this point in time for me. So for, for retailers to be able to present those types of choices that show the lower impactful, sort of environmental choice for the consumer, I think that's what consumers' expectations are going to drive the market to, for retailers to show how they're investing in the technology that can lower that environmental impact.
Thanks, Paul. And I know you, Descartes, have recently done some really, really good research, which we've published on Business Leader about, consumer expectations across Europe. You mentioned 71% there are now considering the environment. Just if you let us, where is that ranking with kind of price at the moment?
Where is that ranking with? Sorry,
with price.
So in terms of, it's difficult to say exactly where that is in terms of price, but what we're definitely seeing is that consumers are looking at, an increasing number of consumers are looking at the environmental credentials of the product. So be that sort of, sustainable products rather than those which have not got a sustainability considered in there. What consumers are looking for is they're looking for a retailer, for brands that are demonstrating to them they're considering the environment in the products that they're creating and the way that those products are being delivered. How that sort of matches up against price at the moment is, it's probably a little bit early to determine, but I think, certainly you can see that, consumers are opting for environmental deliveries rather than going for their primary first choice at the moment. So they're sacrificing some of the convenience that they want for an environmental impact.
No, thanks, Paul. I got one last question for you. We have had a question in from a viewer. Sorry, just before that, I just wanted to ask you, Paul, quickly. Obviously Kristina and Halfords aside, because they would be your answer. But have you come across any business that you think is doing environmental and ESG? A particular champion in the e-commerce space. If there's one you can't name, no worries. But anyone that you think they're doing a really good job, obviously apart from Halfords.
Well, yeah, Halfords, of course, but also other brands, some major brands in the UK. If I was to call out some of you, I think that so for a long time now, John Lewis, for example, on their delivery side, have been using the same type of technology to offer consumers that green leafed sort of flag delivery option. We've also got that with grocery retailers on the continent, where they're doing exactly the same thing. So there are retailers out there that have picked up on this. They may have been early adopters back, sort of 5 years ago or more, but it is definitely it's at front of mind now. You can look at people. If you go as far over as Finland, Kesko, one of their primary goals is to be the world's most environmentally friendly retailer of groceries. It's front of mind for all retailers now.
No, thanks, Paul. And we have had a question. It was one I was going to cover, actually. So that's went really well. Do you have any noteworthy examples of technology helping e-commerce brands they look to scale? I think Kristina, we've just given Paul 3 questions on the trot then, so we'll give him a break and start with you. Just an insight into how Halfords are kind of using tech and how you see it helping the business going forward.
So, we've got a comprehensive tech stack across Halfords, but I'll speak to, my division and working with Halfords mobile experts. So we use a software that we built in-house that I mentioned previously to help us to optimize that customer journey, right? So we went out to market a few years ago and we realized that actually there was no software in the market that would help with that customer journey that starts with the customer wanting to book a service or buy a product, that finishes with the customer being satisfied about the service that they're getting in their home or the service that they're getting in an auto center. In addition to that, there was a lot of we talked about the listening to the consumer, and there was an understanding that there is a lack of trust in the automotive industry. What's happening to my car? What are you doing to it? Because it's such a skilled, technical area of expertise, it's very difficult when it's under the hood, so to speak, or the bonnet, I should say, what's going on with the vehicle, or what's going on with the bike, or what's going on from a service perspective. Because if you're not an expert in it, it's hard to understand, and you need to have that trust that the person that's fixing your bike or your vehicle knows what they're doing, and they've not overcharged you, and they're doing the right thing. So we built a software that was going to not only help with that customer journey and help with that ease of being able to check out, being able to have that choice to select an appointment time that you want, so you're not sitting around in your home all day, to pick a delivery that works for you, to be able to see what's happening with your vehicle, with your bike, with your product, and then to also have that communication long term with the brand. What we did realize with the technology is that there wasn't the way to support that optimization for us to then also be able to add the sustainability, add the additional choice in for the customer. And that's where our software is underpinned with Descartes technology, because that optimization allows us to provide those economic options for the customer, provide the environmentally friendly choices, and then provide the route optimization for our technicians, so that they're traveling less on the road, they're doing more jobs a day, they're helping more people, and so that's one way that Halfords has used technology to then enhance that customer experience, because there are other brands out there that aren't able to do that, and we've truly been able to give a hybrid approach to our business and be able to give that customer the choice that they're demanding.
Thanks, Kristina. And Paul, I know this is your space, so maybe if you want to adapt the question slightly to how Descartes can help brands with their kind of tech stack.
Yes, definitely. I think in terms of sort of scaling e-commerce, I think scaling e-commerce services is something which we definitely can help with. Examples I would jump to would probably be things like sort of John Lewis, as they scaled up their ability to offer installation services alongside delivery. So as you get your new smart TV, delivered, and you want it mounted on the wall, you want it connected up to your Wi-Fi and so on, being able to, at the same point of committing to a delivery being made, using the same technology from Descartes, which looks at your logistics capacity in real time to determine, can you make that commitment in the future to deliver this TV, and the installers are going to be able to set it up as you want. That enabled the likes of John Lewis to scale the level of services that they were offering many times over in that space. Others out there, sort of in the building supplies world, you've got people like Sherwin-Williams delivering paint to painting sites or job sites, introducing there the concept of same-day delivery, same-day appointed delivery online. So order it now, get it delivered at a pre-prescribed time and location by 2:00 this afternoon or something. Those services enabled by Descartes technology and the optimization and efficiencies that come in with it are examples of how online e-commerce has scaled in there.
No, thanks, Paul and Kristina. I think we've covered a whole kind of gamut of things that are impacting. I just want to go back for a final thought to the original question and what the debate was about is, will the e-commerce boom be sustained? And I think we kind of answered generally that that's going to be yes, don't we? Isn't it, Kristina?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's here to stay, and I think the best thing that businesses can do now is understand and then fix how they're going to have the best e-commerce experience for their customer possible, because that's now going to be the competitive edge against other retailers, especially in the online space.
Well, no, thank you, Kristina, and thanks also to Paul. Final thought from you, and if we go back to that kind of original question, I guess the answer is probably yes as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the answer is still yes.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely yes. I think those retailers that sort of, as Kristina mentioned earlier, trust and choice. Sort of for online retailers that can address consumers' need for trust and choice in there, that'll help address those what seem like unrealistic expectations.
No, No, thank you, Paul. Really, really do appreciate your time. And thank you to Descartes, who were our presenting partners for today's event. So you'll be able to find this on our website as well, if you want to kind of look back and hear any of the interesting points. Just want to say as well, we recently conducted an interview with Stephen Bartlett, who is set to be on Dragon's Den in the next series. So do go check that out on our website. There's a video and print interview and a digital interview that you can watch. So, and it's easy to find on the website. So thanks everyone for tuning in today to this debate. And thanks again to Kristina and Paul.